On foreign policy, even in these tense and dangerous times, the Labor Party is again attacking the Australian government instead of foreign intimidators like China. Fresh on the heels of Anthony Albanese and others siding with the French president in his attacks on Australia and Scott Morrison for dudding the French over the dud subs deal, well, now Labor is effectively offering comfort to China. We've just had former Labor Prime Minister Paul Keating telling us that China is just a big, misunderstood teenager, that we should wash our hands of the democratic and free people of Taiwan, and that Australia is being overly aggressive just by ordering decent submarines. Now Labor's Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong has run similar lines. In comments that most certainly will be welcomed in Beijing, Wong has accused Australia of talking up conflict.
The consequences of a kinetic conflict over Taiwan, with the potential for escalation, would be catastrophic for humanity. So when Peter Dutton talks about it being inconceivable that Australia would not join a war over Taiwan, he is wildly out of step with the strategy long adopted by Australia and our principal ally. Amping up the prospect of war against a superpower is the most dangerous election tactic in Australian history.
Has she not seen what China has said about Taiwan of late? What it's said about teaching Australia a lesson in any military conflict? Has Wong not seen what China has done in the South China Sea, what it's done to democracy in Hong Kong, how it threatens Taiwan with military hardware? I don't know what's wrong with just backing Australia. China breaches international law. It's a communist dictatorship that tramples on human rights. It's punished Australia overtly, economically, because we dared to ask for an investigation into the origins of a global pandemic. And Labor slams Australia? Joining me now is Michael Shoebridge, the Director of Defence Strategy at the National Security at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Thanks for joining us again, Michael. Now, as someone who used to have to run the lines on China for a foreign minister, I understand the idea of strategic ambiguity and not wanting to be too clear about what would happen in hypothetical situations over Taiwan. But it's China and Beijing that have completely turned all that on its head, surely, in the past couple of years, with absolutely robust and threatening actions as well as words.
Well, yes, Chris. I think really if I had to summarise Penny Wong's speech, I would say it was strong bipartisanship wrapped in a wrapping of attempted disagreement. So, she said in the speech, if you look for it, she agrees with the government's structural positions on China policy. She agrees with the government's entry of AUKUS and the extra military capability that we'll get as a result. And she supports the Quad and the directions that the government is taking Australia with our important Indian, Japanese and American partners. So with that wrapping of disagreement over the top, it sounds like that bipartisanship isn't there. But I think that's going to be a problem for her to sustain that debate. On Taiwan, it's hard to see that Peter Dutton is at all out of step with Australia's Taiwan policy or with the Taiwan policy of our bigger partners. So it's core Australian government policy that we oppose the change of Taiwan status by force. And Biden was extremely clear with Xi in their recent summit about that. And the Japanese government has been equally clear publicly recently. What Dutton went on to say was, in the event that there was a war between the US and China over Taiwan, it would be inconceivable as an ally that we didn't participate. And I think that's true just from a national interest point of view about Australia's future and the security of the region. So I don't think it's a sustainable argument that Dutton's wildly out of step. I think this is really about our domestic political debate rather than anything meaningful in the world.
Well, I think that's absolutely clear. And the point is that Penny Wong accepts the status quo is what we want to maintain, but you don't actually promote the status quo by suggesting, as Paul Keating did, that would give a nudge and a wink if China subsumed Taiwan. That's encouraging a disruption to the status quo. But on your assessment of the speech, this is typical in these Labor Party foreign policy speeches, isn't it? In the fundamentals, yes, we support AUKUS and yes, we support what the Australian government's general position is on China, but always offering enough criticism to perhaps satisfy their own socialist left factions and those critiques. But it's always those bits that surely the Chinese diplomats are going to seize upon and use to strengthen their arguments.
Well, that is a risk here, that Beijing reads Penny Wong's speech and connects it to the Keating remarks and comes up with an answer of 4, which is actually not what the Labor leadership now has as their policy. So I think that is a risk. But really, I think when you boil it all down, it'd be great to hear more from Penny Wong about the really positive directions for Australian security out of AUKUS and the Quad, and also this new partnership between the Quad governments, India, Japan, US and Australia, and our big technology companies, which was all of last week with the Sydney dialogue. Really, Australia's ending 2021 in much better shape with much closer partnerships that help with a secure region than we had any right to expect 2 years ago. It'd be great to hear the Labor Party talk more about that.